This is going to be our Cornell Notes over two-step equations. So go ahead and pop that in the topic or objective there. Make sure you fill out the top of your paper here. I'm before school right now, and it is the 2nd of September 2014. Okay, our essential question today is, how do you use undoing to solve two-step equations? So we'll start with maybe the most obvious question. What is a two-step equation? It's an equation with two operations. So I'll give you an example here. So for example, I could take something like x, and I could say I want to add 4 to x. That is one operation. I've added 4. And then I could say, well, I want to take whatever I get from that and multiply it by 2. And then if I make it an equation, it's equal to some number over here. So I have two operations. I have the addition that I started with, and then multiplication. And so when we say two steps, it's because of those two operations, we're going to do two things to solve it. And so we'll ask our next question. This will be pretty brief, I think. How do you solve a two-step equation? Step 1 is decide what operations are present. And then 2, do the opposite operations in the reverse order, which is going to look like SADMEP. And so you might notice that this is PEMDAS backwards. And so we're going to decide sort of as a rule of thumb what's farthest away from the variable and then try to undo it, unpack it until we have the variable by itself. So let's just look at a couple of examples. What if I had 2x minus 3 equals 11? My first step here is going to be to notice the times 2 and the subtract 3. There's two operations. I see a multiplication by 2 right here, and I see a minus 3 right there. In the order of operations, normally you'd go PEMDAS, and multiplication would come before subtraction. And so, however, we're solving an equation, so we have to do the opposite operations in the reverse order, or opposite backwards. So I'm going to say, so add 3, then divide by 2. Because adding 3 is the opposite of subtracting by 3, and dividing by 2 is the opposite of multiplying by 2. I'm going to go ahead and execute that plan. I'll add 3. You'll recall that you have to do things to both sides of an equation. So I have 2x now is equal to 14. And you can note that negative 3 plus 3, that makes it 0, and that's why it's gone. You don't have to write the plus 0. Now I can take my second step, which is to divide both sides by 2. And so then I get x is equal to 7. So that's one example there. Let's look at another one. Let's look at x over 4 plus 7 equals 2. We'll make it 2 is fine. So first thing I'm going to do is notice that I have divide by 4, then plus 7. And then my second step is going to be to do the opposite backwards, or think about the opposite backwards. So I'm going to subtract 7, and then the opposite of division is multiplication, so I'll multiply by 4. So let's go ahead and execute that plan. So I have minus 7, x over 4 is going to be equal to negative 5. And then I'll multiply by 4, and so I'll get x is equal to negative 20. And so the 4 divided by 4 there is going to cancel out and give me the 1x that I'm interested in. This plus 7 and minus 7 is going to give me the 0 I'm interested, so I just have x over 4. And so I took 2 steps to solve it. Occasionally it'll look a little bit weirder, and I'll just, without executing here, I'm going to show you example. We might have x minus 3 over 2 equals 12. And so we're going to do the same stuff. We're going to notice that I have a subtract 3 and then divide by 2. And notice I wrote them in that order because the whole x minus 3 is over the 2. The minus 3 is actually first in the order of operations here. And so then that's going to imply for a problem like this that I would start by multiplying by 2, then adding 3. If you have any struggles with that, just ask your teacher for some help. But hopefully you'll, at this point, look back over your notes. Your job when you're writing a summary for Cornell Notes is to try to answer your essential questions. So how to use undoing to solve two-step equations. Hopefully you can write 2 or 3 sentences that fit inside that box to try to make sense of that question. Good luck.